Why have you stopped?
I meant to be doing my homework.
Oh, I never did my homework. It never did me any harm. Don't say it.
This is child exploitation.
Ah, shut up and get on with it.
Can't you just dry it with a towel?
No, my hair will go frizzy.
But my arm's tired.
Well, use the other one. Look, come on, you're really good at it. Although you do need to work on your small talk. Stuff like, you know, where are you going on your holidays, love? What does your fella do for a living? Funnily enough, mine's a hairdresser.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 301 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catcher podcast that tried to phone in an order at Roy's for a sausage barn yesterday. We just got an elderly woman telling me I'm an arsehole. I'm Gavin.
And I'm a bit smug and pleased that my bank knows that I would never in a million years buy anything off of Walmart.com.
Oh dear. We need to talk about the kitchen maid. You got your identity stolen, kinda.
Yeah, I got my card number stolen, at the very least, at the bare minimum.
What is wrong with these people? When I got my card stolen, they went crazy at White Castle. And if you don't know what White Castle is, it's kind of a slider fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
Low end, I would say. The low end of the fast food hierarchy is White Castle.
They are tasty. And they do have a movie. They have the Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Not an awful lot of fast food restaurants can lay claim to such a thing. Nobody's made a movie about Wendy's or Burger King or Arby's or Taco Bell.
I don't think any of this improves the quality of the food, though.
It's iconic. White Castle is
when
iconic.
I saw that come back, that they'd spent or tried to spend $20 in two different White Castles. $20, by the way, which means buying everything off the menu twice.
My friend Chrissy, apparently somebody tried to book travel to Denver.
See, that's
using
better.
her card.
Excellent. Go with that.
Is it because typically for things like that, you have to show identification?
Yeah, but at least it shows some kind of ambition.
It shows stupidity.
None of these people are curing the world of cancer.
Well, that's true. If somebody said, hey, can you give me $200 to spend at Walmart.com to cure cancer, I'd say sure.
I'm just disappointed that you didn't find out what it was they tried to buy. Was it just like the regular weekly shop?
I don't know. I really, I honestly don't know. But it gave me a bit of a headache for the rest of the week.
It does.
Because, you know, I live in a different state from my credit union. When I call them, they're like, oh, yeah, if you want to stop by, we can get you done in 5 minutes. And I'm like, I live in a different state 800 miles away.
Yeah, you should do something about that.
So they have to mail it to me. Yeah, so I was really bummed out. And then at work, I was
hold on. Oh, that's sad trombone. The fuck did Lotion talk? Oh, there we are. Told. Lotion talk.
Yeah, so I got to work and commiserated with my coworkers and my boss and stuff about it. And then I got to work, and one of the first things that I cataloged that morning was Prince's 1999 on vinyl. And for those who don't know, this is the particular Prince album, which on vinyl records typically come with paper sleeves over them as well as the cover. And this is a double album. There are two. And one of the paper sleeves features a naked picture of Prince lying in bed with like his little bum kind of peeking out underneath the blanket. And so my day improved greatly at that point.
Did you look at his bum and think that's a place I could have swiped my bank card? Chip and pin now. Chip and pin. I don't know what that means.
Nothing good.
Although it's all touchless now, which is probably how it should be.
Are we still talking about asses?
I'm not sure what we're talking about. I only have a very fleeting relationship with what we're talking about at the best of times.
Yeah, you're not interested in Prince's ass.
No.
No. How was your week?
How was my week? My week was better until the fucking spunkberry tree that we've got in our yard started to blossom. And now my throat's all scratchy again and my eyes are kind of nippy. I only really get allergies when that fucking spunkberry tree is in bloom.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
On the little walk to my work, there's an avenue that's flanked by them all the way up to the front door. And it smells like cum.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's the lilac tree that bothers me. Unfortunately, it seems like the kids are slowly killing the lilac bush in our yard because I don't think it's bloomed in a couple of years, which is nice. It's terrible because like everybody loves lilacs. Lilacs are like a flower that, aren't they very pretty? And they grow in these big bushes and like people will cut them and bring them in and to brighten up the place. And it's like, it's killing me. This flower is killing me. Why can't you just bring in daffodils like a normal person?
Yeah.
The cumberry bush does nothing to me, though.
Oh, well, shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that spunky Corrie news. I can't remember the last time I used the word spunk quite as often. Probably this time last year.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's when it happened. Condolences to Kimberly Hart Simpson, our Nikki, whose Aunt Patricia died this past week, shortly after it was announced that Kimberly was rejoining the show and filming scenes and stuff. So, that's tough. It's tough to be starting a new job and have, a family member die unexpectedly or otherwise at the same time. I just happened to go through that myself a couple of weeks ago. So, pretty sure Aunt Patricia wasn't wearing a Trump hat, though.
Probably not.
Probably not. They are tightening the belt over on the cobbles as show bosses cut back on extras in scenes and cut back how many of the regular cast is on the premises at any given time and in any given scene and working them later hours and filming scenes back to back to make the best use of daylight and stuff. And this seems to be worrying certain members of the cast who are, I assumed everybody was on a salary over there, but apparently there are some actors whose contracts are that they're filmed per scene, which to me just does not seem like it would make sense creatively.
Well, I could see, and I have no knowledge of this whatsoever, but a character like Swain was last year would probably have been on something like that, I would have thought. Where they don't know how many scenes they're going to need her for or how many episodes she's going to be in. They'll have a rough idea.
Right. And that makes sense. But apparently...
But regular members of the cast.
But apparently some of the regulars of the cast are also paid per scene.
The way that I understood it was like someone would get paid, let's say, 100 grand, and that 100 grand would be for them appearing in, let's say, 150 episodes or something.
Right.
Just numbers off the top of my head, right?
Right.
But here's how much we're going to pay you, and here's how many episodes we are going to have you in.
Right.
And that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. But apparently there's some budget issues over on the cobbles. And apparently it was floated to cut down on how many episodes. But considering how many times fans of the show fire up those pitchforks, fire up those torches and sharpen their pitchforks every time there's football interrupting Corrie on a Friday night, they've decided against that.
Well, if you were to read my blog posts from last week, I talk about this a little bit, where the number of episodes has kind of gone up to, if we count them in half hours, it was like 313 half hours or whatever in a year, which seems like an awful lot of episodes, and it is an awful lot of episodes, and it's enough half hours to watch the whole of the Game of the Thrones twice
Right,
and
yeah.
the Lord of the Rings director's cut in the amount of hours of corrie that's getting produced, but
Right.
it is still generating the most ratings, and by the most ratings for ITV, it is bringing in the most advertising revenue. They're not going to cut the number of episodes and cut the amount of advertising revenue that they make because they're a commercial venture.
Right.
Why would they want to do that?
Yeah.
They would go to 7 episodes before they would go to 5,
Yeah.
was my thought in the blog. But these are, they're tough times for everyone, and if they're struggling to pay extras or they're wanting to cut corners by not paying extras, first of all, I think that means we're never going to see Fish Guy again, which is a shame.
That's a shame.
But, when businesses start to make those sort of decisions, it's hard not to be worried about stuff like that.
Right. And finally, congrats to Jodie Prenger, who shared on Instagram that she has, at long last, got cast cards for the show and ended her post with, "I did it, Nan." So that's really cute.
That's lovely.
Why it took 2 years for her to get cast cards boggles the mind. But
I can't think of another character who has just slipped into icon status almost immediately.
her and Dee Dee.
From Glenda's first scenes, she was like she'd always been there.
Yeah, we kind of fell in love with both of them, like, immediately. So, not that we are, like, the arbiters of who gets to be iconic on the show, but maybe we are.
Maybe we should be.
Maybe we should be, and that's Corrie News.
That's Corrie News, and that leads us, as if predicted by Nostradamus himself, into our feedback section, which I like to call Everyone's a Critic.
We didn't even talk about the eclipse.
And
Like, a major astronomical event happened this week.
I didn't even go outside. Noel writes, "Happy anniversary, babies. I've got you on my mind because you light up my life and you give me hope. You give me strength to carry on. So come sail away with me." That being said, the first episode this week was Comic Gold from your not-so-secret admirer, the Noel Man. Thank you very much, Noel.
Thank you, Noel.
Debbie writes in, "Oh crap, I forgot about your anniversary. Anyway, better late than never. Happy 300th. I look forward to listening to you guys every Friday night from here in British Columbia and never miss an episode." British Columbia?
British Columbia.
And Friday night.
Friday night.
When I finish editing this shit at like 2 o'clock on Saturday morning,
Right.
it's still Friday night in British Columbia.
Yeah.
Love it. Then Red Day writes in on YouTube, "Happy 300th. 100% agree that one Mason scene is one too many. I genuinely worry that they're going to have Daisy turn into Mina from Emmerdale to fill the void Uncle Stephen left when he went to the great big bin in the sky." I loved Mina in Emmerdale, so I wouldn't be too upset about that. Then Neve writes in, "Congratulations on 300 episodes. Enjoy listening, sometimes more than watching."
We keep hearing that for some reason.
A common emotion there. Gail Platt Loves Olives writes, "Another fantastic episode. Been listening for a solid 4 years now, and I've loved it ever since.
Aw.
One of the only podcasts that can have me buckled over laughing." Happy 300th. Thank you very much, Gail Platt Loves Olives. Griffey writes, "You don't really think Tracy's gone for good, do you? She'll be back with her tail between her legs just as soon as Steve gets a click on his dating site." And I think we kind of neglected to talk about this a little bit last week, because I remember speaking to you before we recorded about whether we thought Tracy had left for good, and it didn't feel like it was a proper departure or a proper permanent exit, but we did talk about it like we thought it was, and then we moved on to something else.
Kate's interviews do not make it sound like she's coming back anytime soon.
On to Daisy now, who writes, "I just wanted to say thanks so much for everything you do. I had a whole plan for a voice note created as if we were in the pub talking about you both as characters in a fake Corrie episode, but I forgot to do it.
Aw.
You're both so epic and a big part of my week. I started listening when I saw my ex-girlfriend's family watch Corrie 4 years ago. I've moved country, career, partner, and yet you have been my constant.
Aw.
I can't quite enjoy my week until I've listened to your voices describe the show. I watch the show with your voices in my ears. My partner is constantly checking in to when I've listened to you, and Pickles was right. Every episode is a blast. Happy 300th episode." Thank you very much, Daisy. Then
So
Tricia
nice.
writes, I am so remiss and contrite to have missed sending this last week. Congratulations on 300 episodes of pure listening joy.
Oh,
I love the musical intros to segments, Helen's wit and whimsy, Gavin's humour and true love for the show, and the intelligent, informed insight you both bring to the stories. Also, I love that we band of loyal listeners have a voice in the show now too, through the feedback section. Keep up the wonderful work, you two lovely people, and thank you. Happy 301 from Tricia.
no.
Thank you so much, Tricia.
Thank you, Trisha.
Oh, so much feedback.
So much positive feedback.
I know. Sharon writes, Hi, Gavin and Helen. It's me, Sharon, from England again. Still loving the podcast, all 301 episodes. A few things I've been thinking. Dev looks like David Essex. Yes, he does. How does Paul get upstairs to the flat? He's got the
little ride-along thing
Yep.
that grandmother in Gremlins gets terrified. It gets speed up and she falls and she dies.
chairlift.
Yeah,
Chairlift, that's it.
chairlift.
When is Alina coming back with Tyrone's baby and to look at his tattoo? Exactly. I thought that was going to be last Christmas.
Yeah, we thought this was
Maybe
going to be a
this
Christmas thing.
Why would Steve be at Tracy's leaving do? Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Where has David's dog David gone? I've missed David shitting in the street. And his dog. Why doesn't Violet love Dylan? That's hilarious. Yeah, why doesn't Violet love Dylan? Also, it was lovely to see Chesney and Gemma's fridge make a cameo appearance. And also, why is no one nipped off for a shite? Well, maybe they'll do it this week.
Maybe.
Fun fact, though, this month so far is the first month where most of our listens have come from the UK.
What?
Come on, Canada, pick it up here.
It's that Guardian article. I know it.
Maybe it is.
Maybe it is.
And then finally, Cheeky writes, the only good part of this week was Dylan finally deciding to tell the truth. Problem is that it took way too long for that to happen. I wish the writers would open their eyes to the fact that sometimes stories go on for too long, not because they're uncomfortable, but because the writers don't seem to know what they're doing with those characters. I also love that Carla took control of the Rovers and fired Daisy. I was upset by how quickly Ryan forgave Daisy. No one would forgive that easily, especially when wronging a relative.
Yeah.
Quite right.
Yes.
Thank you so much to Cheeky, to Sharon, to Tricia, to Daisy, to Griffey, to Gail Platt Loves Olives, to Neve, Red Day, Debbie, and Noel for writing in this week. We very much appreciate it. Feedback is always welcome. You can send your thoughts and I will probably read them out like I think I've just proved. Get us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. Please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interest of brevity. And also just want to quickly point out that there are at least 6 different ways that people can get in touch with us. And sometimes I forget to check each and every one of them before we hit record this week. So if you do write in and I fail to read it out, it's likely an accidental oversight on my part rather than a deliberate knockback. And when I do eventually realise that I've missed someone, I feel terrible about it.
You do.
And now we'll podcast for coffee. Thank you to Daisy for our coffees this week.
Thank you, Daisy.
Daisy writes a thank you for the 300th. Well, Daisy, thank you so much for our coffees this week. We absolutely appreciate it. I'm drinking Canada Dry and the same Coca-Cola spiced from last week.
You are on the spice. Your eyes are so blue.
That's the spunkberry tree. The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. But if you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/The Talk of the Street. You can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link, where for as little as $2 a month, you can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. And remember, you can always support the podcast for free and get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts. Do you know what I realised this week?
What?
Every week for like a year or so, I've been telling people to go to the clicky section of voggle.co.uk on the outro. There is no clicky section to voggle.co.uk because our podcast provider, Podbean, changed the template for the site.
Oh, no.
And all that stuff was lost.
What?
So I've put it back on again now, but it's not in a clicky section. But if you do go to voggle.co.uk now, you can get links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog.
Huh. Well, that makes things more difficult.
Oh, it does a little bit. Okay. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Y'all's please.
Our first storyline tonight is Bully for You. On Monday, it's the day of Mason's trial, and Gary is taking Liam for breakfast before he goes to give evidence. Meanwhile, at the rape hotel, Dylan's doing a runner. Well done, Dylan. Just in case we were getting into the spirit of thinking that Dylan's going to do the right thing.
Right.
The first thing that he does this week is look like he's going to do a runner.
Yeah.
Violet runs to Sean's to explain that Dylan's gone. And it turns out Liam and Dylan will be giving their testimony over video link. So that's nice, isn't it, Helen?
Yes. I remember doing video link. Of course, it was from a different state. In that particular thing, when we were negotiating bringing the kids to Michigan.
How did that work out, Helen?
Well, it worked out fine, but it was very stressful because a very wee Stelly thought I was Skyping with Nana and Pop Pop, and so kept popping up and waving to the judge and blowing kisses and being a distraction. And the judge was not having it.
Oh.
He was not a very nice person.
Oh, well. Let's hope that's not the judge that Dylan and Liam get this week on Coronation Street, then.
Probably not. I think that man is dead now.
Let's hope so. At the bistro, Liam isn't hungry but receives moral support from Dee Dee and Alia until Sean and Violet show up to explain that Dylan is AWOL. Alia mentions the meeting that she saw at the precinct last week when she was covering up her pregnancy, and everyone assumes that Mason has nobbled Dylan. Gary goes off with Sean to help look for him, and Liam thinks, fuck this for a game of soldiers, and just goes home.
Right.
On his way, he runs into Dylan, who explains that he's fucking off like a coward and apologises for all the hurt that he's caused. He thinks Liam should run away with him. That would make an interesting episode, wouldn't it?
It would be. And a spin-off show where Liam and Dylan do their best Incredible Hulk end of show impersonation, where they're both walking along the side of the road with their thumbs up and sad music plays.
I was thinking of the theme tune to The Littlest Hobo. That was about a dog.
Was it?
Called London.
Who was a hobo?
Mm-hmm. It was a dog that just went from town to town helping little boys and girls. Am I remembering this right? The Littlest Hobo would be like the Incredible Hulk, but in dog format. So he would solve a mystery, or reunite a family, or stop a bully.
So, kind of like Wishbone. Did he talk like Wishbone?
Oh, he didn't talk, he was a dog.
Well, Wishbone was a dog, but he also talked. Well, he talked in his head. I don't know if people... Did this dog also, like, go back in time and use stories from literature in order to solve the mysteries?
What the fuck do you think a dog is?
That's what Wishbone did.
I don't think Wishbone was a real dog.
Wishbone was a Jack Russell Terrier.
This is the theme tune to The Littlest Hobo. There's a voice, it keeps on calling me. It was high, I don't remember being high.
Down the road, that's where I'll always be. Every stop I make a new friend.
Can't stay for long, just turn around and I'm gone again. Do you not remember this?
Maybe tomorrow I'll wanna see.
No.
The
I
episode
assumed
was
this was...
called Mail Order Bride.
I assumed this was a British show, but that does not sound like a British show.
No, I think it was Canadian. Which explains a lot. Am I right, Canada?
Actually, I think Wishbone was a Canadian show as well.
Hold
It was on PBS. That's how I got most of my Canadian shows.
The Littlest Hobo was indeed Canadian. That was a lovely dog. Anyway, Gary gets back, sees that Liam has done a runner and shits himself. He had one job. Gary had to look after Liam, and he's let Liam do a runner. When Maria realises that Gary has lost Liam, she is fucking furious. Meanwhile, Liam does his best to talk Dylan down and explains there's only one way to bring this awful story to an end. So they turn up at the Rose Gold flat, claiming that they just went for a walk. Sean explains how proud he is of Dylan. And as they're waiting for a cab, though, one of Mason's cronies shows up to remind Dylan that snitches get stitches.
It's the one with the stupid name. What is it, Chonk?
Yes, I think his name was Chonk. From the Newport Chonks.
You know that, like, at least one member of a ridiculously stupid, hereditarily wealthy family has the nickname Chonk.
You hope so. Snitches get stitches. You didn't see any knife, see? Or the next knife you see will be sticking out your guts, see?
And your mom's guts. And your dad's guts. This is a very long knife. This is like a sword. It's a
very
rapier.
long knife and it's a very long threat. Threat should be far more succinct than that.
Well,
'Cause
they're
Sean
just
and
kids.
Violet
They
could
don't know.
Turn up at any time. So at court, Liam watches his video statement being given, and then Mason's lawyer asks him about how Mason didn't really have a knife. Liam explains that Dylan hid the knife from Mason, and then the lawyer tries to make out that Liam was jealous of Mason and his wonderful eye makeup. Liam kind of admits that he was jealous of Mason and his popularity for a little while, but then he realised he was a horrible fucking bully.
Yeah.
And the kind of fascination wore off a little bit. When it's Dylan's turn, cowardly Dylan shits himself and says that he didn't see Mason with a knife. Sean loses his shit at this. The judge says that this doesn't square with the statement that Dylan had previously given, but Dylan sticks to his guns. And this allows the prosecution to have a crack at Dylan, and the prosecution lawyer reminds him of his statement and his oath and the importance of doing the right thing. Liam storms out the courtroom, which Dylan sees, and so Dylan changes his tune and throws Mason under the bus after all. And that about does it for the judge, who finds Mason guilty as fuck, and he'll be getting to jail. Sentencing will be handed down in a week. You're fucked, pal. Back home, Gary thinks that they're now able to put all of this behind them, so he's a little shocked to learn that Maria still intends to sleep on the floor in Liam's room.
And what is she? She's wearing a very short nightgown in order to do so.
Oh.
She should be wearing, like, the longest granny jammies you have, Maria.
She should be fully dressed.
Yes.
In fact, you just shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, you shouldn't be sleeping on his floor anymore anyway.
So this story, now that we know that the bullying aspect of it is done, although, to be fair, when sentencing was getting delayed for a week, I was thinking, well, what's going to be happening the rest of the week? Is Mason going to be showing up? And I was so glad that he didn't.
No.
And I don't think he even had a line to say this week, because he wasn't the one that turned up to threaten Dylan, because of course he wasn't.
No, it was
He
Chonk.
gets Chonk to do it. Just get some other asshole to do it.
Right, and even, like, during the sentencing and stuff, it's who I assume is his brother sitting next to him, who has, like, one line.
Yeah.
Like,
Thinking
sucks
of
to
you,
be,
bruh.
Sucks to be you, bruh.
Yeah, the threat of the two brothers didn't really materialise either.
No, especially the one sitting next to Mason, the one with the Friar Tuck haircut.
Yeah, again, no cure for cancer in that row, I don't think.
No.
So,
well.
Yeah, I'm glad that we didn't see any more of Mason, but this story then changes from the bullying story into the Maria being overprotective still of Liam kind of story, where this is not an end to it as far as she's concerned, and despite the fact that Liam seems to be better or in a more positive
Significantly
frame
better,
of mind,
right, yeah.
it doesn't seem to be good enough, as we will see
No.
later in the week. So Wednesday, Violet is getting ready to whisk Dylan back to that London where knife crime isn't a thing.
That's like the funniest part of this, is that Violet keeps saying, I want to keep him safe, so I'm taking him back with me to London.
Yes.
Where there's no crime at all in London.
Yeah. Here, I've given you a chance to get to know your son better, Sean, and what do? You introduce him to bullies and knife crime. Come on, Dylan, you and I are going back to 1970s New York City. What?
Oh, dear.
Sean begs her to allow Dylan to stay, but Violet's mind is made up, and you know when Violet's mind's made up,
How?
doesn't really count for anything. Sean's case isn't helped by the fact that he's wearing his jumper with taxi written on it, so it's really hard to take him seriously.
It really is. It's like that jumper that Craig wears that says, what does it say? Like whatever or something?
I don't know, I'm not all that familiar with his wardrobe. The one thing that Craig does wear that makes me laugh the most is the one that says police on it.
Where's Craig gone? We're in the police
He's
station.
a big brother.
so much, and he's gone on to the Big Brother. I miss him so much.
I know you don't. So, Violet drags Dylan to the tram stop, but Dylan finally puts his foot down. He says he's done wrongs here that he needs to make right, and he can't do that in that fucking London. So this changes Violet's mind, and Dylan is allowed to stay at least until his GCSEs are done. Violet wants kept in the loop more, and she claims she'll miss Dylan, and then she fucks off. And I think that's it for Violet's return. We hardly knew thee again.
Right. Yeah.
She came back, she left us the same day. She came back, she's lasted 2 days.
Right. We don't really get to know her very much other than the fact that she has a very optimistic view of crime in London.
Yes.
And loves her son. And
Well, so
also
she
misses
says.
and also misses him when he's gone, when he's not with her. Because she says, you need to call me more frequently because I miss you.
But it's as Sharon says in her feedback section, does she love him?
She seems to.
Because she's shown no real interest in keeping in contact with him over the last year and a half or so.
Well,
We never hear from her. We never hear Sean saying, well, you need to go and speak to your mum, or that's your mum on the phone for you.
Would
Just
we-
to remind us that she actually exists.
They do talk about her occasionally, and it's up to Dylan to call his mom. It's not her job necessarily. And she does say, you need to call me more often, so maybe we'll hear her voice on a phone.
It was quite nice when she said, I didn't want you to just come back because of this.
Yeah.
I wanted you to come back because I
missed
missed you
you.
as well.
Right.
And maybe we need to hear that a little more often.
Yeah.
I'd have quite liked to have stayed on, but she's got her own life down in London. So
Right. Yeah. And isn't she remarried? Doesn't she have a man down
think-
there somewhere?
I believe so.
Well, there you are.
On Friday, Gary's making fajitas for tea. Fajitas!
You make fajitas. No, you don't make fajitas. You make
Enchiladas.
enchiladas.
Which is like a fajita, just wrapped up differently.
Right. And baked.
Liam wants to go back to... Oh yeah, it's baked all right. Liam wants to go back to school.
What does that even mean?
You know what that means. Maria shits her brakes about this and delays by wanting to talk about it later, and Liam is frustrated by this, and he's going stir crazy, stuck in the rose gold flat. Gary approaches the subject with Maria, suggests that Liam needs normality, but Maria angrily decides that Liam will go back to school when she's ready, not when he's ready, and she doesn't hear how that sounds.
No, she doesn't.
And reacts badly when Gary explains it to her. She isn't surprised Gary doesn't get it, because Gary isn't Liam's real dad. And this really seems to sting Gary.
Yeah. Fuck you, Maria. That's mean.
Fuck you, Maria. Those are different lyrics to Mr. Jones by Counting Crows.
Wait, isn't there a song with Maria in it that could be the alternate for instead of a Counting Crows song?
Fuck off, Maria. Show me some of that Spanish dancing. Pass me a bottle, Mr. Windass. Anyway. Later, Gary bumps into Sarah, who's on the day wine.
Of course she is.
Because Damon's sentencing us today, and she's kind of upset about this.
Which we don't get to see.
They get chatting about Liam, and Sarah offers to share her afternoon vino. So while Maria's at work going frantic with Liam going to the pictures with Kirk and not responding to her texts, she then hears Gary complaining to Sarah about Maria in their flat and predicting that the relationship can't continue like this. Sarah tells him to speak to Maria, otherwise he'll resent her. He thinks she has enough on her plate and is reluctant to do that. Then Sarah gets a call from Dee Dee confirming that Damon got 6 years, and upset, Gary comforts her with a special Gary hug. Not like that.
No.
Later, Maria gets a message from Liam letting her know that he didn't get in touch with her because he was in the fucking cinema.
Right. Seriously.
And he observes good cinema etiquette because
Yes,
he's
he
a
does.
good boy.
Yes, he does.
Washing behind his ears and stuff.
Unlike the woman out in front of me at Godzilla X King Kong. At least she kept her shoes on.
Yeah. Don't always do that.
They don't.
I'm kind of guilty of taking my shoes off in the cinema. when I'm just wearing my flip-flops.
So bare feet on the cinema floor?
No, my feet are up in the air because I've got the reclining thing going on.
Bare
And I'm
feet touching the seat?
Bare feet and asleep, usually, in the cinema.
At least you don't bring a blankie from home.
Toya's there to get Maria set up with a counsellor. Let me Google that for you, Maria. You want a counsellor for Liam? Let me Google that for you. She's got a counsellor for Liam, but thinks that Maria needs someone to talk to as well. Maria asks if Toya could be that person, and Toya says, you know what, I'm not really a counsellor anymore.
Yeah.
Despite another
Despite
storyline.
another storyline
She
pointing
insists
out that
very
she's
much
a
that she
trained...
is.
Well, she points out she's a trained counselor. Yes, in another
Make
storyline.
up your mind, Toya. Meanwhile, Sarah's going through a list of her failed relationships, a list that includes Gary, but they agree they had more good times than bad. Sarah moves in for a winch, but Gary isn't having it and pulls away,
No.
making Sarah run away embarrassed.
As she should.
Sarah isn't a loser. Oh no, wait a minute. Maria comes home in a mood, knowing that Sarah was in the flat, and Gary wonders how she could possibly have known that, so Maria has to point out the hidden camera. Yeah, that's never a good look, is it?
No, it never is.
The reason that I know this is because of this hidden camera. So what you got to
Right.
say for yourself? Well, it kind of feels like the dynamic of that argument has shifted somewhat, doesn't it?
Just a wee bit.
She explains what she saw and seems to have missed the bit where Gary hugged Sarah or where Sarah tried to winch the face off of Gary. And for some reason, Gary chooses not to fill in those blanks.
No.
She wants him to speak to her about his feelings and stuff, and she apologises for shutting him out, telling him that he's a great dad to Liam. She says that she
And
trusts...
his own kids.
Kinda, sometimes. Well, at least one of them. She says that she trusts him. He jokes that the only thing that he's guilty of is a few dodgy dance moves, and Maria laughs and then mentions that it might be worth checking out after all, because it's all in the cloud. And Gary quietly and gently shits himself. And that's all that happens in that storyline this week.
Yes.
Of course it's in the cloud.
Everything's in the cloud. Even things you didn't put in the cloud. Somebody else put in the cloud.
Unless it would be useful if it was in the cloud. And then it's usually not in the cloud.
That's true.
So here Gary's thinking, how do I get this out of the cloud?
You don't get it out of the cloud. It's in there.
How do I break this camera without it looking like I've deliberately broken this camera?
The camera's not the cloud, Gary. The camera's not the cloud. Nobody knows what the cloud is. It's just this thing floating in the air somewhere.
I can tell you exactly what the cloud is. It's a computer server,
Yes, but where is that computer server?
probably in Detroit.
For the whole world?
No, for Midwest US. There's server farms everywhere. I've been learning about it. I've got to do a Microsoft certification on it.
Lucky you.
Oh, the last time I did an exam was 1990.
Right. Meanwhile, I'm over here checking out Prince's ass.
Yeah, that's the same. So, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah and Gary then.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
Let's not. I'm glad Gary pulled away. I'm glad Gary did the right thing. I was like, oh, this is nice. This tells us that Gary truly does love Maria, which we already knew.
And
They're
he
a great
does.
couple. And we really enjoy them.
And he really does love his little family that he's got going there in the Rose Gold flat.
Absolutely.
And
And he's not going to risk it for Sarah not even wearing the leather skirt
but you can't be taking your ex back to your flat
to drink wine
and
during the day.
and having a heart-to-heart with her about your current relationship and how you feel it might be on the brink and stuff. You might think that, and that's a conversation that you maybe should be having with Maria.
Right.
But you can't have that conversation with Sarah. That's getting in an emotional
Did-
entanglement that it really doesn't want to be doing.
Did you find it odd that they went to the Rose Gold flat?
Yes.
And not the hipster flat?
Or
Sarah's
the cafe,
flat?
or the
Well-
bistro, or something.
Well, they're not going to go to the cafe or bistro to drink that bottle of wine.
Not true. Well, maybe don't drink the bottle of wine. That's the afternoon. Come
Why?
on, people.
Yeah. Why did they not just go to Sarah's? It's Sarah's wine. They should have gone to Sarah's house, where there is no camera, and that would mean that this storyline couldn't happen, and that Maria couldn't break down in front of Toya and have it hinted at that maybe she needs some mental health help as well.
Yeah.
But still, you do something so other things happen, but it's a thing that doesn't really make sense in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is why they have budget cuts. Maybe it's the writing room that needs the budget cuts.
But we're removing common sense from all the plots now as a budgetary.
No, maybe it's the fact that there is no common sense in the scripts that needs the trimming.
I don't know. I never really like blaming the writers for this sort of thing. I think the writers get told what to write. It's the higher ups that I blame for this. But yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No.
Although I guess Gary was taking her back just as a friend, but it's her wine.
Right.
It was her idea to drink it.
Right.
I think the etiquette of that situation is you go back to her house to drink her wine that she
Right.
wants to drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bringing somebody off the street to drink their alcohol just seems weird.
I expected Gary to be a lot more mad about that camera.
Well, I think he understands the reasons why Maria has it.
Right. But the fact that she didn't tell him
Yeah, he was.
until now,
I think he was well within his rights to be a little annoyed at that.
I'd be annoyed.
Well, I think anybody being spied on
If
is
you
going
were
to be annoyed about
secretly
it.
filming me in the house.
And it all getting backed up to the cloud.
Yeah. In Detroit.
In Detroit somewhere.
Somewhere.
Next to the Tiger Stadium.
It's probably not in Detroit. It's probably like in an old field somewhere, like masquerading as an Amazon warehouse.
But oh, the bullying thing seems to be over.
Thank God.
Have we seen the last of Mason? Oh, please let us see the last of Mason.
Please let us see the last of Mason. And we only get one scene with a family member. When I thought we were kind of promised that we were going to see Mason's whole family and not just like basically his twin with a Friar Tuck haircut.
I liked the idea that it seemed that the Mason family were from the rough estate. Gary kind of knew them. I thought it was going to morph into something like that was getting other people involved in it. I thought that was going to be an interesting take on it, and it never happened. Bit of a shame.
Yes.
Our next storyline tonight is the Tell-Tale Pyb. On Monday, Daisy turns up for work with an attitude. She reckons that Carla can't fire her because her name is on the deeds. Jenny disagrees, and that's all the investigation into that happens.
Right. Yeah.
Daisy,
Well, I think the whole premise of this is sure, if you want to go complain to somebody, go ahead. And then I will point out that you stole all of this money in order to make it happen.
Yes.
That's the thing here.
Daisy still seems mostly pissed off by the fact that Jenny hasn't got sacked too. Daisy goes to see Ryan and claims that she has nowhere else to go and she cannot lose him as well. Ryan remembers that he's been lied to for weeks and closes the door in her face. She goes to Nina's Rolls where she sees Daniel, who apologises on Bethany's behalf, except Bethany hasn't apologised.
Oh, she hasn't.
And he knows that she'd never steal that money.
Well, funny thing about that, says Daisy.
Sensing that something's wrong, Daniel buys her a coffee. Daisy confesses to Daniel that, you know what, I did steal the money and I bought the pub in an attempt to make things better. And now no one wants anything to do with her. She claims she wasn't thinking straight at the time and thought that Daniel would understand. He doesn't. So she goes to the Rovers with an envelope of money and an apology for Carla, but Carla is unmoved. Ryan, however, looks like he's melted a wee bit. So Daisy is packed and ready to leave when Ryan apologises to her for piling on and thinks Carla will come around. He admits that he's still in love with her and they hug. And it does feel like Ryan has kind of forgiven rather swiftly here.
Yeah, I really liked last week where he's like, yes, I'm still in love with you, but I don't want to have anything to do with you. That felt more real and more true.
It was more real, and then there was the more biting moment when he said to her, you still think that everyone else is wrong here.
Right.
I liked that Ryan.
Yeah, me too.
I liked that Ryan who expressed himself as clearly as that and as brilliantly as that.
Right. And then she sells all of this stuff back and gives Carla the money back. And that's all it takes, Ryan? Really? Really?
You should think more of
'Cause-
yourself than that, Ryan.
Because she still doesn't think she's done anything wrong. She's still throwing a pity party for herself.
No, and that's the whole momentum of this
Right.
episode is it's not her accepting that she's done anything wrong, it's getting Jenny to accept that she's done something wrong.
Right. When Jenny knows she's done something wrong, she just feels like Daisy has done more wrong.
Well, let's cover that, because on Wednesday, the good news in the pub is that thanks to Jenny's first payment to Carla's now in a position to buy the factory back from Gary. Jenny is still team...
Crisis averted.
Yeah, Jenny's still team throw Daisy under the bus here, while Carla reminds Jenny that she's a grown woman who seems to have been only too happy to go along with Daisy's plans. Rita is at the bar, and here's the two of them really stick the knife into Daisy and demands a word with Jenny, calling her lady, which is a clue that a lecture is incoming.
Absolutely.
Through the back, Jenny explains the events of the last few months, and Rita's main gripe is that Jenny thinks that she's any better than Daisy. Rita calls her a fucking hypocrite and storms out, saying either defend Daisy or take the same punishment. Later, Bethany barges into the Rovers demanding a word with Daisy. Daisy offers her two. Bethany wants some satisfaction after Daisy lied to her face, but Jenny takes charge of the situation and flings Bethany out. Jenny admits to Daisy that they're both equally responsible for the situation. That said, Jenny breaks the news that Carla wants Daisy out of the fucking pub.
Yep.
And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Yeah. She doesn't even want her living there.
Which I kind of think goes without saying, doesn't it?
One would think. And yet.
It takes to Wednesday, to the end of Wednesday, to make this clear.
Right.
But she was just going to live there.
Right. Yeah.
After all this, she's just going to live there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How is she going to live there if she's not bringing in any cash?
so it does seem that the whole, like I said, the momentum there was not getting Daisy to make right anything.
No.
Or even offer to make anything right. What she did was kind of
Right.
throwaway almost. It's to get Jenny to admit fully to her side of the whole thing.
Right, yeah.
Which she eventually does.
Right.
And Carla doesn't sack Jenny because...
Family.
family.
Yeah. And it's easy to see that. I don't understand why anybody is like, well, why didn't she sack Jenny? Hello? Jenny was her stepmom. End of.
And the fact is, Carla doesn't like Jenny anymore and doesn't trust her.
No.
Because she said that last week. But Carla fucking hates Daisy.
Yeah.
And hates Daisy not just for what she's done with the money, but for what
Because of
she's done
Ryan.
to Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there is part of me, though, that looks at this whole situation and does see Daisy as a woman who has gone through trauma over the last year that has never really got any treatment for that, any real help with that. She's gone from one bad situation to the other. Is she a woman scorned here?
Well, no, she's not a woman
Not
scorned.
a woman scorned, but you know what I mean.
You're right. However, that is no excuse for any of this. You know?
No, but it feels...
It's like when someone was abused as a child and then murders someone and says, well, I was abused as a child and that's why I murdered this person. You're still guilty of murder.
Of course.
And she's still guilty of theft.
Of course.
Even with all of her trauma.
What I'm kind of getting at, though, is last year, Summer went through one thing after another thing, after another thing,
Right.
after another thing.
Yes.
A few years ago, Leanne went through one thing after another thing after another thing. This feels like Daisy going through one thing after another thing after another thing. And the kind of thing that they all have in common with each other is none of the things are ever dealt with. Amy is another one who goes,
Every woman on the show is another one.
yes,
But they're not all stealing money from Carla. Carla's another one.
yes.
Yes.
I guess what's confusing me about all this, and amongst all this piling on, where is the man that's learning something about themselves here?
Well,
Because you have to have a man learning something about himself here.
Ryan's
That's
kind of...
why women go through trauma.
Ryan is going through trying to figure out how to love someone and not like them at the same time, I guess. And it feels like Daniel's getting something out of this, even if it's just smugness,
He does like a bit of smugness.
right? So now he can lord it over Daisy a little bit. He
I don't
does
know.
love that sort of thing.
I would imagine that I would be enjoying this more. But I still feel like I'm feeling a bit sorry for Daisy.
I think I would feel more sorry for Daisy if this wasn't exactly who she was when she was introduced.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel trauma-based necessarily. It is kind of frustrating because they rehabilitated the character and they made her better, and then a horrible thing happened to her, and it kind of seems like the way she dealt with a horrible thing happening to her is to say, well, I tried to be a good, nice person and it didn't work, so I'm just going to be a bad person again. And these are things that do not switch on and off necessarily. Now, I don't have sympathy for either one of them because they did a bad thing. And so I have no sympathy for them at all. I especially don't have sympathy for Jenny because Jenny was a more moral character to begin with.
Yeah, out of the two of them, she's the one that feels like she's been corrupted most.
Right.
Or her character has become corrupted.
Right. And for me, that kind of feels like yet another thing to hate Daisy for. It's because she corrupted Jenny. Mm-hmm. You know, to steal money from her own stepdaughter. It is frustrating that the show never allows anyone really to deal with their trauma. And everybody so many people on that street, the majority of the women and a handful of the men have been through extreme trauma. And it's never really dealt with.
Well, it's dealt with kind of off screen. They get sent away somewhere. Ryan goes off to Glasgow for a month or whatever.
Right.
To get his head together. Peter goes off sailing or whatever to get his head together.
Carla went to the insane asylum twice. I know they're not called insane asylums anymore. The mental health hospital.
Yeah.
I am glad this is out in the open because I hated this.
You did.
From the very beginning.
Oh, you did. Yes.
I hated it. And I especially hated it when there would be scenes of loveliness in the pub and everybody enjoying themselves and happy and stuff and be like, these people are happy, this pub is open, but they don't realize that the money they needed to buy Christmas presents for one another and feed their families was stolen and used in order to open this pub back up.
You know, it's a bitter pill to swallow, right enough.
Anyway, I feel like we've talked enough about this.
I think we have. I did want to say something about Daniel, but I'm not going to. Our next storyline tonight is reality coding bites, which is a pun that works on more than one level. On Monday, in the bistro, Leanne is doing some reality coding, which seems to mean look like you're asleep.
Meditation.
Simon explains to Nick it's about visualising about what you want and then making it happen. Nick is briefly interested until some customers show up. Realising that Nick couldn't give a fuck, Leanne tries to explain it to Toya, who is super sceptical. Leanne thinks that this, what's-his-face, Rowan, has a great outlook on life and challenges Toya to have an open mind. Simon explains that he thinks it's just like mindfulness and manages to connect with Toya on that level. He says that he would have kept at it, but it's not cheap. On Wednesday, Nick is getting sick of Leanne meditating and stuff and is behaving like a wank while she tries to explain what the Institute stuff is all about, which seems to be basically saying it's the power of positive thinking and that your brain is like a computer. At work later, Toya's got sand in her vagina about Leanne watching inspirational videos at work. Toya gets chatting to Debbie, who reveals that this Rowan character has been staying at the Rape Hotel, but is checking out today and she'll be pleased to see the back of this slimy piece of shite. And this gets Toya interested, so Toya goes to the Rape Hotel and quizzes Rowan before he goes. Rowan goes through the same spiel about the brain being like the computer and the power of positive thinking and stuff. All the stuff that Leanne and Simon has already done. Toya's sceptical and basically calls Rowan a con man, talking in word salads and harming people, and she's a counsellor, so she knows what she's talking about.
She's a trained counselor.
Rowan tells Toya to suck his balls, and he leaves. Toya reports back to Nick, reckoning that Leanne is a loony if she thinks that if she's paying money for this joker's advice. Nick discovers that there's 400 quid gone from their account. So Nick decides to take this out on Leanne and demands that she stops throwing money at this twat, and Toya agrees. Leanne doesn't give a fuck about what either of them think, and if money is so important, then dock her wages. Later, Toya and Leanne continue to argue about this, an argument that I think we've had during the Oliver storyline.
Yeah.
Because wasn't Leanne trying to get was it a medium or something she was trying to talk to? And Toya was, what the fuck are you doing?
It was a psychic on TV. Remember?
Oh God,
It
yeah.
was like a
The
Miss.
Scottish psychic.
Yeah, it was like Miss Chloe back from the dead.
Toya thinks that Rowan is exploiting Leanne's grief for money. Leanne doesn't,
Just like that psychic did.
yeah, doesn't know why everyone is so hung up about the money stuff, and she feels as though she's been picked on by Toya and Nick for being a thicko. She doesn't care. She's feeling better than she has for months, but if everyone's got such a hard-on about the fucking money, she'll cancel the next cult module. So Leanne gets on FaceTime to Rowan to talk about the next module, which Rowan says is practically bespoke for her needs. Sadly though, Leanne has to cancel after pressure from her family, so Rowan agrees to refund all her money and hopes she'll continue with the exercises. And this act of generosity changes Leanne's mind. Fuck 'em all. She's in for the next module, and she'll cough up the cash for it. So on Friday, Sam now is taking a turn at talking to Leanne about future coding, and seems to have her banged to rights. She tries to rope Simon in to back her up, but he's non-committal, and privately tells her that he's kind of given up on it for a business idea that he's had.
Right, yeah.
Later at the bistro, Toya shows up and apologises for going behind Leanne's back and promises that she trusts Leanne to be an adult about these things. Simon meets up with Carla to pitch his business idea.
And Leanne.
It's a food delivery app, a locally based food delivery app that definitely won't make money. Carla worries that it's a saturated market, but Leanne challenges him to write up a business plan before they invest. So 5 minutes later, Simon's written a business plan, and Leanne is super impressed. In other news, she made a huge booking for the bistro, and she puts all this down to the techniques that she learnt from Rowan. She envisioned it, and it's happened. She gets
like she's envisioned this specific thing happening.
She gets Rowan on video and asks him for his thoughts on Simon's hastily compiled business plan, and even Rowan thinks it's dog shit. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Yeah. Why is it always Leanne who falls for this shit?
Because she's vulnerable. She's still vulnerable.
Should she still be this vulnerable? Steve isn't this vulnerable anymore.
Steve can't remember Oliver's name, I don't think. Leanne, I think it's all right for her to be vulnerable.
Why? Because she's the mum.
Yeah,
Dads can't be vulnerable.
they can. Steve, though, I'm not sure. Although Steve does show signs of it occasionally.
Right, yeah.
But Leanne shows more frequent signs of it.
Feels like it should be okay to still mourn your dead child. I'm not saying that. But for her to still be this vulnerable and gullible, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, gullible, at this point where someone just, talking about Oliver is able to really suck her in, seems inappropriate. And the fact that, it also feels like a part of it is that she's insecure, that she's not as smart as Toya or Sam or Simon. That whole thing about...
Or this inanimate carbon rod.
Or Nick.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of perfect storm, isn't it? It's like Rowan has focused on the Oliver stuff.
Right.
But in competition with that is
also
her her sense of inadequacy.
Right.
That
And independence from her family and being able to make her own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And she feels like she can't make her own decisions because she's not as smart as everyone else.
right.
And
So it's a combination of those things that's
Right.
making this really work. Although I have to say, is anything that's getting talked about here completely out there? I hear all bullshit about this positive thinking malarkey and stuff all the time, and
let's not forget that if it weren't for the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, we would not have Donald Trump.
so there you go, it works.
Does it?
It's worked for him.
Because, you know, his dad was a member of that idiot's church.
I think that
I feel like it's very like introductory stuff, and it is very word salady, and the mind is a computer sort of thing, and we don't access all of it all of the time, which is an urban legend. You know, just because you're not using all of your brain all of the time for one thing doesn't mean that the other parts of your brain aren't doing other things all of the time. Like was it who was it who was in that movie where the woman is suddenly able to access all of her mind all of the time and becomes like a supervillain?
I don't know, but I remember a Bradley Cooper movie where it happened to him.
Which was equally stupid.
It was essentially the same movie, I think.
Right. Yeah, only at one point it was a woman instead. I want to say Angelina Jolie, maybe?
I don't know.
Scarlett Johansson?
I can't access that part of my brain right now.
But it, you know, it feels like the very kind of sort of mild and introductory stuff before you get to the really scary stuff where this guy's tattooing his name on your vagina sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's like the very preliminary Nexium stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
We're not at cult level at the moment. We're not at the going off to a commune and drinking the Kool-Aid kind of stuff yet.
No, but it's like the beginning parts where you begin to get sucked in, and $400 a pop for a video feels very Church of Scientology, doesn't it?
I couldn't tell you what the going rate is.
Sucking, you know, it feels kind of, that is a red flag, I would say.
Well, it feels more sort of Ponzi scam than a cult.
Well, cults are Ponzi scams. They both have a lot of pyramids involved. So, yeah, because we had that psychic early on after Oliver died that Leanne was giving lots and lots of money to and got sucked into. It kind of feels like they're at a point where they just don't know what to do with Leanne. So they're just regurgitating that story only with a cult instead of a psychic.
It did feel like a lot of the conversation that she was having with Toya was copy and paste from the psychic storyline.
And it's funny that nobody's brought the psychic up yet. It's funny that neither Toya nor Nick have brought the psychic up.
You would think that Toya would have brought it up because the way Toya was talking big old counsellor Toya. She was
right, absolutely.
very much talking about concepts and ideas and stuff that Toya doesn't typically speak about off a week. If Toya was operating at that level, which it sounded like she was, then she's scoring points here wherever she can, and would absolutely have brought up the psychic.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm kind of going back to the whole trauma thing. This is more that's getting heaped on Leanne, and I don't know how much I'm up for it at the moment.
And especially if it's, you know, heaping more trauma in a very similar way from the old trauma sort of thing, and still kind of feeding on the whole Oliver's death thing, which, again, feels kind of gross to keep going back to that well and feeding from that well for storylines for this character who, let's not forget, still has 2 living sons.
The good thing about this, though, as much as I'm not sure that I'm enjoying it, and I'm pretty sure that I don't want this to happen,
Yeah.
despite that, it is showing Nick up to be a total wank here.
This is not the only storyline where Nick
It
is
is
a
not.
total wank.
It is not.
He is a total wank about it because at least Toya is trying to be kind about it and recognizing that, meditation and visualization isn't necessarily a bad thing, and asking her questions about it and trying to figure it out, and showing an interest. Whereas Nick, when he walked in and shouted boo at her,
While she was meditating.
right. It's like, fuck you, man.
Yep.
What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do this to a person you supposedly love? Why would you do... Even Sam is gentler with Leanne while
Sam
he's
is
talking about,
so much gentler.
oh God, what was it he was talking about? It wasn't Foucault. It was a different philosopher and theories and theoretical physics and stuff. It's so cute that he thinks Leanne's going to understand any of that. But,
Nick is just so dismissive and so disinterested
right.
until it's
Until
cost
it's
him
costing
money.
him money.
And it's
And the fact that he doesn't even notice that $400 was just gone until Toya asks him, how much is this costing you? What is wrong with that man this week?
I don't know why he's trying to belittle everything that she says.
Right.
He's doing his best. If Toya arguably has, had this reputation for being the superior intellect, Nick is doing his damnedest to make her think exactly the same.
Right, yeah. If he's trying to get her to stop, he's doing it in the worst way
They're
possible.
both doing it the wrong, because all she's going to do is do the Leanne thing of digging her heels in.
Right,
and
exactly.
that's where this is absolutely in character. She's digging her heels in. She's wanting to prove them wrong,
Yep.
and that kind of works. All right, we'll see where that goes. Moving on, our next storyline is Do You Want to Bet? Just a few scenes here this week. On Monday, Ed is coping with the abandonment from his wife reasonably well until Michael hands over today's mail and he wants to bury his head in the sand again. But this is from the insurance company paying out from the fire, and the cheque is for more than Ed was expecting.
Nice.
It's still not enough to pay off his debts, so Ed was thinking about using it to buy tools. If you can get tools, you can do work. Privately, Michael and Dee Dee aren't so sure and agree to try to get him to see the benefit of reducing his debt now. Ed overhears this and later announces, like it was his own idea, that instead of buying those tools, I think what I'm maybe going to do is pay down my debts after all. What a great idea, says Dee Dee and Michael together.
Good job, Dad.
On Wednesday, Anina rolls Ed is trying to drum up business with old contacts but with no success. A passing Debbie reckons that she can help him out and offers him a handyman position at the Rape Hotel. Given that the last time Ed had a job there he electrocuted himself, it's a little odd that he agrees so quickly. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Well, he's got nothing else going, so he
doesn't.
bites off her hand. Where's Ronnie?
Where is Ronnie?
Where's Ronnie? Debbie and Ed in a scene with no Ronnie?
Michael, no! Sorry, I just like doing that. That's
You sound like
brings me-
Homer Simpson.
it brings me joy.
All right, fine. Who am I to deny you joy? At least it doesn't hurt my ears.
Like my guitar singing thing was?
Yes.
How are you talking about? Okay.
Yeah. What else would I be talking
Good
about?
I don't know. You throwing darts at your ears. So it's nice of Debbie to help out.
Yeah, well, they're practically family.
She knows that Ed does a good job. Kinda, I suppose. He does have a good reputation.
He's got a good, he's a hard worker.
Yeah, I liked it that Debbie was helping him out. And
Yeah,
I
it's
was
nice.
liking how Dee Dee and Michael, they've got the right idea. You get rid of your debts as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the game. Bring it down. Show the company that you're serious about reducing that amount.
Yep.
Definitely the way to go. Moving on, our penultimate storyline is Auf Wiedersehen, Eliza.
Why?
Yes.
Why are we even getting scenes of this when I thought this was more or less established a couple weeks ago?
Corrie do this quite a bit. They'll throw in a couple of scenes on a Friday just so you remember it, where they do the main lifting for the storyline early next week.
Right.
On Friday, at speed dial, Stu and Yasmin are preparing for Eliza to come home from Germany, and Stu's worried that he's going to lose her permanently. Yasmin tells him not to worry. But apparently the first thing Eliza mentioned when she got off the plane was she's going right back to fucking Germany. Yasmin thinks she might change her mind, but Stu can't see it, and he doesn't want Eliza's pity or her staying here if she doesn't want to.
Right.
I don't think he was in danger of either of those things happening. He has to accept this and let her go, which is very grown up, if very dull.
Yes.
And that's all that happens in that.
Yes. It feels like they had Stu on set for another storyline, and they're like, well, we've got him. Might as well just use him.
Funnily enough, I reckon the same thing can be said for Kirk this week.
Yes. That's very true.
Kirk showed up for work. Well done, Kirk. You're getting a couple of scenes.
Right.
Stu here, no, I can't pretend to be excited about or interested in any of this.
He does. It does cut between this and another storyline with Stu in it this week that we haven't talked about yet. It does kind of feel like a return to the old Stu a little, doesn't it?
No, I think the damage has been done with Stu. I think they've irreparably ruined the character
I don't know.
by introducing this family.
For me, it kind of felt like he was moving back towards the old Stu.
You remember when he was having this jealousy thing with Roy?
Yep.
It's hard to forget about that stuff as well, where it was just, why has he been such an asshole?
Well, he's not now, so bridge is repaired.
Oh, no. I think it's done. It's a shame. Let's move on to our final storyline, which is where on earth is racist Kelly? On Monday, Roy has called a staff meeting. Only Shona and a hungover Alex have shown up. We get a little bit of Alex this week.
I know, and he's hungover. It's so cute.
Roy apologises for the atmosphere in Nina's roles recently, and this is thanks to the armchair sleuths. Shona and Alex don't give a fuck and have Roy's back. Later, Nick is dropping Sam off at number 8, and the conversation turns to Roy and his woes. Sam wants to go to see him, but Nick doesn't think it's a good idea, what with all the weirdos hanging about. Sam pesters Nick and makes him cry a little bit, but Nick won't budge, so Sam has to blow dry Shona's hair instead, and that was hilarious.
Yes, it was.
To get out of this, he fucks off to see Hope, as per Nick's instructions, but instead he goes to see Roy at Nina's Rolls instead for a game of chess.
This is like, what is happening to our Sam? It's like 2 weeks in a row. He does something he's not supposed to do.
No, he's getting to that age.
He is.
Roy is touched that Sam came round because he was at a loose end and not because he thought Roy needed babysitting. Sam keeps dinging calls from Nick and has to explain that he lied about coming to visit Roy because Nick thinks it's dangerous. So Roy takes Sam back to the bistro and Nick is fucking furious. So furious, in fact, he manhandles Roy to push him into a corner and
Right.
berates him for allowing a 12-year-old boy in his flat and how it must look to people who wish Roy harm.
Right.
Hanging around with kids is not a good look. Flustered and upset, Roy rushes home.
He
I was
does
like,
apologize.
eventually, but it's like, you get your hands off that man.
Yeah. You can explain this to Roy without shoving him into a corner.
Right.
What is wrong with you? You
Ugh.
know, it's Nick gives Leanne a hard time about things. His overbearing protectiveness of Sam is just infuriating.
It really is.
He treats him like he's not considerably smarter than he is and fully capable, probably, of living on his own already. If he
Nick's
wanted
always
to.
had a problem with Sam's relationship with Roy and playing chess.
Right, yeah. Oh, you should be out playing ball and other things.
Remember, it was the obsession with chess rather
Right.
than crying about his dead mum that
Right,
got
yeah.
Nick kind of flustered about that a few years ago.
Instead of recognizing that chess is a coping mechanism because it's something that Sam can control in a way. Terrible parents.
I don't think I've ever been so angry at Nick, though, when he put his hands on
He put his hands on Roy. Roy, who, let's remember, brought Sam back and immediately, as soon as he realized that Sam did not have permission to be there, did the right thing. I mean, Nick is right about the whole, how is this supposed to look to outsiders who wish you harm?
Well, he's basically saying, Roy, you look like a paedophile here.
Right. Yeah. A nice little bit of foreshadowing. But it's just, you don't have to touch Roy in order to talk to him.
No. On Wednesday, the cafe phone is ringing off the hook, but no one's answering. This is against Roy's wishes, who is worried that racist Kelly's mum might be calling. Meanwhile, Stu has caught wind of all this and feels sorry for Roy. He knows what it's like to be wrongly accused, and he's determined to do something to help. He goes to see Roy and promises to do some digging amongst his contacts, for that read homeless people, to see what the word on the street is. So Stu heads off to the precinct and speaks to a homeless fellow that he finds living in a doorway, and he claims to have information for the right price. But when Stu produces his wallet, the homeless fellow twats him in the face with a brick a la Chesney and does a run away with the cash. Kirk is on set this week, so he takes Stu to Speed Dial, where he regrets his naivety, and Alia and Yasmin make a big deal about it. Stu goes to give Roy an update and promises to keep his ear to the ground, but he doesn't mention the assault, blaming a fall. But Kirk goes into Nina's Rose later and blows Stu's story. And this really upsets Roy, who is now more determined than ever for everyone else to abandon him and let him face this alone because too many people are getting hurt. Even though his worst news, Haley's son Christian has done an interview of sorts where he basically suggests that Roy killed Haley and is totally up to kill again. Roy takes this more as a slight against Haley and becomes inconsolable and almost confesses to Nina about his role in Haley's death. And it took me to think, Roy still hasn't told anybody about that. I think Carla knows.
But you're not sure that Carla knows.
No, I think Carla knows.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that Carla knows. And Alma knows. But Alma's not in it anymore.
Right.
So no one knows that Roy helped
Haley died.
take her life.
Right.
But he comes very close to telling Nina here. And Nina basically says, even if you did do something like that, I don't think I cared because I know how much you loved Haley.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting for this to come back up when we have the Paul and Billy stuff going on just a few doors down.
Yeah.
Makes
yeah,
you wonder if
they're deliberately drawn attention to this.
maybe.
Because they're kind of showing that they're copying the storyline a little bit.
Right, but it also kind of feels like maybe Roy will play a part in consoling Billy or, helping him or something. I don't know.
Meanwhile, a mysterious woman turns up in Nina's Rolls looking to speak to Roy. It's a woman claiming to be racist Kelly's mum.
And all you have to do is look at her to know that woman is not related to racist Kelly in any fashion.
Doesn't look like her, doesn't sound like her. Her name's Carrie.
She does not seem like the type of woman who would be racist Kelly's father's wife.
And another thing, she does not want a custard tart.
No.
So against everyone's better judgment, Roy sits with Kerry and they share war stories about being vilified in the press and social media. Kerry wanted to make up her own mind about Roy and wanted to speak to people who knew racist Kelly, so that's why she's here. Kerry thinks Roy is a kind man, so Roy fills her in on what's been happening.
But not like that.
Wouldn't you believe it though, Kerry has no money or a room for the night, so Roy offers to put her up in the flat. Evelyn and Nina think this is asking for trouble, but Roy is now in his sanctimonious mode, and the decision has been made and he won't be talked out of it.
Right, yeah. And, I mean, meanwhile, for us, the red flags started when she walked in and claimed to be racist Kelly's mum, because she does not look anything like what racist Kelly's mum should look like.
She's blonde, I think that's
in
the
a
only thing
soap
she's got
opera.
going for her.
But there's also, like, the way, first of all, she doesn't talk. She doesn't say anything about the fact that racist Kelly was living with her until her new husband said she needed to get a job. She doesn't mention that. She doesn't mention the fact, anything about feeling bad because that happened. That maybe if I had kept her with me, none of this would have happened.
The only thing that she
And
said
then-
that did check out was that she said that she moved down south, which is where Racist Kelly's mum went.
Right. And then she says, tell me everything about her life here. And that set off red flags because it wasn't that long ago that she was living with her. So she would probably know almost everything. So the fact that Roy, an intelligent human being, just takes it on faith that this woman is telling the truth and is really Lauren's mom without getting any sort of verification of that is very frustrating.
Yeah. But this needs to happen for the story to happen.
Right, yeah. Well, maybe this story shouldn't happen.
Which is awful. Right?
Maybe this story shouldn't happen.
Because some of the people that are there, in fact, all the people that are there, Nina, Evelyn, Shona, Alex.
Shona doesn't think this is a good idea. Shona, who let's remember.
Let's remember. Let's remember, Helen. Let's remember.
Some of the goofy things that Shona thought were good ideas. Like, I don't know, pretending to be Nina's boyfriend or a guy who's interested in Nina to make Asha jealous.
Not Shona's finest moment. But you know what? She was shot in the stomach and she ended up with a brain injury. So, but none of those people
think this is a good idea.
Can I see some identification here?
Yeah.
Doesn't cross anybody's mind. And all of those people really would.
Nina is sitting there, and you can tell in her face that she's not sure about this woman, but does not say anything. What? To spare Roy's feelings?
Yeah, no, she's eyeing this woman up left and right and thinking something doesn't check out here.
Yeah. And
But Roy's in that mode where
Right.
he can't be talked out of it.
no.
Anyway, when Kerry's been led upstairs to her room, she privately takes a phone call where she confirms that she's in. And as she's putting her phone back in the handbag, we see that she's also carrying a pepper spray.
Right, which is illegal.
Which is like, why has she got that? Because I'm thinking, is she a journalist? Why would a journalist have pepper spray?
Well, if you believe that Roy is a murderer, you don't want to get murdered. But I'm pretty sure you can't be carrying a can of pepper spray around with you like that.
It's the Defense brand. When I think pepper spray, I think Defense.
Yeah.
On Friday,
I can't remember. Because I used to have like a little... When I was in college, I would carry like a little thing of pepper spray. But it wasn't like real pepper spray. It was like a step down. So it wasn't the illegal stuff. It was the legal stuff.
paprika spray or something like that.
And a
Bell
rape.
pepper spray.
Yeah, it was on my keychain with my rape whistle. So I don't carry that around with me anymore either. One of the few perks of aging. Your statistics go down slightly.
On Friday, in the middle of the night, Kerry is snooping around Roy's flat, filming stuff and recording a narration where, when she's interrupted by Roy, who's sleepwalking, I think, or I
Right,
thought,
yes,
and he
he
is.
is.
But he seems to notice things and he moves things about because he sleepwalks sometimes when he's stressed. In the morning, Sam comes to visit with Nick because Sam was very worried about Roy. And Nick says, yeah, we were both very worried about you. And Sam, were you?
Well,
Were you, you prick?
I think Nick feels bad about the whole manhandling thing after the whole Christian thing.
You bet he does.
So-
But Sam hasn't let him off the hook.
No. Yeah. Back to the sleeping arrangements and everything. She's videotaping family pictures and frames and saying, are these mementos of his gruesome murders? And it's like they're family photos.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you on the other side of the room filming the giraffe and the trains? Why aren't you filming the actual weird stuff in the room, madam? And also, why is she sleeping on the couch? Why isn't Nina sleeping on the couch and putting this woman in Nina's room where they can more easily keep her from snooping?
Yeah. I think Nina would be sitting up, keeping an eye on her.
Right. I don't understand why Nina's not doing that anyway.
Sam eyes up Kerry suspiciously while Nick apologises for the other day. Kerry eyes up everything with suspicion. And later, Roy gets a call, but we don't find out who it's from, but we have an idea.
Yeah, we do.
And downstairs in the cafe, it's confirmed as Roy explains to Shona that he got a call from racist Kelly's mum. But Shona says, but racist Kelly's mum's sitting there in the corner of Nina's rolls. Shona approaches racist Kelly's mum and demands to see some ID.
Finally!
Kerry admits to not being racist Kelly's mum, so Nina throws her out. Fake Kerry isn't even a journalist. She's one of those armchair sleuths or someone who has a podcast who thinks that women need protected from perverts like Roy. Shona tracks down Kerry, aka Alice, who has posted a vlog to send pics showing Roy sleepwalking like a night creeper and telling the world about Roy's relationship with Sam that she calls inappropriate and all about the shrine to Haley that he has. All of
They're
this...
family pictures.
All of this makes me wonder how Alice knew that Roy had reached out to racist Kelly's mum in the first place, but maybe it's just coincidence.
I think she may have been in the calf and we just didn't notice her at the time when Roy said out loud, I'm waiting for a call from racist Kelly's mum or something.
You need a shot in her just so we pick that up, otherwise it just does look like it's coincidence. And I hate coincidences and things like this.
Right, yeah, but they don't want to do that because they want you to believe it's racist Kelly's mum.
Yeah.
Even though as soon as she gets that phone call that says I'm in, you know she's not really
And who's
racist
that
Kelly's
from?
mum. Like, I guess
'Cause
her
I
producer?
I thought that... She's working on her own. She's clearly working on her own. She's a lunatic herself.
She is crazy. She's cuckoo bananas.
Is she cuckoo for Cocoa Pops?
No, she's just cuckoo bananas.
Okay. Roy is stressed out of his tits by all this and goes up to his flat to be alone. Evelyn refuses to let him retreat into his shell, though, and suggests that they take the dog for a walk. But as soon as they leave the cafe, creepy Alison is hanging around outside filming. When she insinuates that Roy killed Haley, he snatches the phone out of her hand and she trips over her own banana feet and lands on a small pot of jam. She immediately cries assault, grabs her phone and shuffles creepily away. How has my life come to this? Says Roy.
Swain.
So Swain shows up following a complaint from Alice McDowd. She wants to speak to Roy. Evelyn attempts to take responsibility for the assault, but Roy refuses to let her. Swain's colleague gets to speak here,
He does.
and he has a far airier voice than I expected him to have.
Yes, he does.
Roy blames Evelyn for all this. If only she'd let him be a hermit like he wanted. In actual fact, if Roy hadn't been guilted into cleaning that flat for Evelyn,
Right.
none of this would have happened either.
Exactly.
So this absolutely is Evelyn's fault.
Which I think may be one of the reasons why she's taking responsibility here, you know, attempting to take responsibility here, and why she's so defensive of him.
Royce is whisked off to the cop shop. He calmly explains what happened and how he was provoked when Alice mentioned that he killed Haley. Swain has already looked at Haley's coroner's report and there was nothing untoward about it. But my God, that shows that Swain is digging deep.
Yeah.
Because she also knows that Roy assaulted Gary with
Yeah.
a spade in 2012.
Why did that happen again?
Gary had broken into the calf, I think.
Oh, so it was reasonable defense then.
With a spade.
Yeah, well, it's probably the only thing Roy had in his hand. It's a good thing he didn't have a knife.
So Swain is just curious why Roy would offer a charlatan and a stranger a bed for a night. He admits to feeling foolish and angry.
Swain.
So Dee Dee goes back to Roy's rolls and she explains that Roy has been refused bail because he was on conditional bail earlier and those conditions have been breached because of his behaviour since being bailed last time. The police have felt that their hand has been called here and they've decided to charge Roy with murder.
Even though there's no body. No evidence of a body. Only circumstantial evidence that Roy had anything to do with it.
And that's how we end this week's episodes.
Yeah, with Roy in a jail cell.
With Paddington Bear sitting up in the little corner window.
Is he wearing his pink uniform?
No, writing to his Aunt Lucy
Yes.
to let her know that
He's in
Roy's been
prison.
arrested. It's a wee shame.
It is a wee shame.
Well, there is evidence. There's evidence of blood and some kind of assault in Racist Kelly's flat. There's evidence that Roy has tried to dispose of furniture that had DNA evidence on it. There's
Yeah, but not
evidence,
his DNA.
There's evidence that Roy has cleaned bedclothes and tried to give Racist Kelly money.
It's all circumstantial. Have we gotten reports back on that blood?
Yeah, it's Racist Kelly's blood.
Is it Racist Kelly's blood? I
Yeah.
thought it wasn't Racist Kelly's blood.
No, they said it was.
Still, it feels... Dee Dee has said that she's seen people go down for less. But still, it feels like everybody on the street would be giving good character references to Roy. Beloved character on the street. Even Gary, I think, would go in there in Roy's defense. And I bet he will when he finds out that it was the whole Spade thing that, is being used as an excuse to put him in a cell.
But it was an assault from 12 years ago. It was
Where
Haley's
the
death
person
from
was
10 years ago.
Breaking in.
This is a man who is not unimpeachable, but he's of good character.
Yeah. The way she's like, there's evidence that you have quite a temper. Yeah, once a decade.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like the show is like, ooh, we're going to, Roy is a beloved character that everyone loves. So it'll be really fun and neat to accuse him of murder and show him in a cell because everybody will be really sympathetic to Roy. And they're not wrong, but it has backfired because so many people are angry and are calling this storyline so stupid because how would anybody believe that Roy could murder anybody? And it feels like there are people who liked Swain initially who don't like Swain anymore because of this whole thing.
And that's just stupid because Swain doesn't know Roy. The police don't know Roy.
Right. Craig knows Roy. Craig tried to say,
Nobody listens to Craig.
This is just the way this guy is.
People hate all storylines.
Yeah, but I don't blame people for hating this storyline.
And it's good that people have a reaction to it. I'm personally still enjoying it quite a bit.
I like the storyline. I don't like seeing Roy locked up, and I don't like seeing Roy harassed and everything. It does make my heart hurt.
Seeing Nick put his hands on Roy, I thought was far more offensive than seeing Roy sitting in prison.
I think they were both offensive. And that woman, I just wanted to punch her in the face.
Oh, God, I hated that woman. Yeah.
I
think they're doing a good job with this. I'm still firmly of the opinion that Racist Kelly is alive and well and racist somewhere. Who knows where?
As long as she's racist.
But right, of that we can be sure. But yeah, it just feels like it's up in the stakes a little bit now. That there's a chance that Roy could go to prison for this. And just because someone's a beloved character doesn't mean to say that they can't go to prison. We've proved this usually with a woman.
Right.
A number of times in the past. Sally goes to jail.
Roy,
Deirdre goes to jail.
I love Roy more than I love Sally. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
I think Roy is more beloved than Sally.
Yeah.
No offense to Sally.
No, I would agree.
Deirdre, though, I think it's kind of... I said her name wrong, didn't I?
Deirdre.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, I didn't say you said it wrong.
I know, but you were giving me a look.
This is my wrestling face.
I think it is kind of in tune with that particular storyline as well.
I remember the furore about that and how it got brought up in the House of Commons.
Right.
But watching that storyline back again, the one thing that struck me about the whole thing was Deirdre's attitude was terrible when she was in prison. What a fucking bad attitude she had.
Whereas
She just didn't stop complaining.
Whereas Roy's probably going to teach the other prisoners to read or something.
Do something remarkably worthy
He's
of
going
his
to
time.
befriend a small bird at his...
Or a mouse.
Yes. So it'll either be one Stephen King short story
Or the other one.
another Stephen King short story.
Yes, without a doubt. So long as we have Roy crawling through a tunnel of shit at some point, we'll be quite happy.
And also being a magical Negro.
The one thing that I would like is for Roy's... I see it's difficult because the things that Roy's doing is or are things that Roy does.
Yes.
But circumstantially, they shouldn't be things that Roy does, because Roy should realise that
Right.
behaving like this is putting him into more trouble and jeopardy.
Or just, listening to the people around him, because we've had other storylines recently where Roy does Roy things and the women around him, because let's be honest, the majority of them are women, kind of gently guide him or point something out. And he does take it into consideration and he does listen to them. And in this storyline, he's not listening to any of them.
No, and he would listen to Nina.
Yeah. And I think he would listen to Evelyn and Carla as well.
He would recognise that he isn't the best person at reading the room.
Right.
But especially when it comes to social media and that kind
Right.
of thing. So he should very much give way to Nina's opinion and go along with it. So
Right.
the fact that he's purposefully
Being very holier than thou and
every time it just makes things
it just
worse.
makes things worse. You'd think he'd recognize that at this point.
I kind of wish that they had a better way of making this happen, that was a more inventive way than
Right.
just ignoring kind of his own common sense.
Yeah.
But
it
where
feels
it's
like
going,
laziness at the moment.
But where it's going with him sitting in prison, it had to go there. It feels like he's the number one suspect. There are no other suspects.
No, there's Daniel.
Oh, well, there's Daniel, right? It feels that this is a natural progression for that story. I don't think he's going to go to jail. I don't think it's maybe going to go to court, but I don't think they're going to put him in jail. But I think they're telling the story that they've set up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to be told this way, and I'm kind of for it. I'm very much enjoying the whodunit aspect of it, and I'm still enjoying the fact that characters that I love are being brought into this storyline. Nina's been brought into the storyline. Evelyn,
Right.
Shona, kind of.
Yeah, but there's also Stu is right. It feels like the police are focusing so much on Roy and watching Roy and digging into Roy's past that they're not actually looking for racist Kelly at all. It doesn't feel like they're doing any sort of investigation into her. I mean, they're digging this far deep into Roy's past. Are they making phone calls and trying to figure out where all of racist Kelly's OnlyFans are and checking out all of those leads? Are they communicating with her friends? Are they doing anything about the harassment her mother is getting? You would think the police would want to, I don't know, protect her one family member who's not imprisoned, and be watching the house to see if maybe she makes contact with her mother.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think I mentioned was the call that he actually gets from racist Kelly's mum. It's basically saying,
Don't call me.
"Don't call me. Stay out of my way."
Right, yeah. My life, this is hard enough for me without you calling me, which I can totally understand. And, I can understand Roy feeling like nobody around him understands him and that maybe racist Kelly's mom would understand him because she's also being harassed. But I was as frustrated as Evelyn was when Roy said, I'm all alone in this. And she's like, the hell you are.
Mm-hmm.
What? Do you see the circle of women around you and Alex trying to defend you and protect you and shield you?
Yeah. The other thing I liked about it is I think this whole thing it's reminding me of that time, was it the News of the World? I think Stuart Lee had a bit about the News of the World, who had this campaign where they published a list of child sex offenders, and it prompted the public to burn down the house of a paediatrician because people are stupid.
Right.
And there's a kind of aspect of that in this
Yes, very much so.
that feels like it's one of those moments without really drawing attention to it. It's the fact that people are overreacting in such a mob style.
Yeah.
And I think that's working really well as well.
Did you see that thing about the teacher who in Massachusetts who was going to take their students on a field trip to Walden Pond, and one of the parents was up in arms and was really offended because it was going to be a field trip about transcendentalism,
Yes.
where trans was in there, and it's like it's a good thing she didn't know that they were going to take transportation to get there.
Right. And a Trans Am.
Right. And maybe translate some of Thoreau's works from metaphor into something else.
And then do some translucent art.
Right.
Okay, I'm spent.
People are stupid.
People is stupid.
People are so stupid. And, I guess I'm kind of happy that finally one of these people who are attacking Roy, like out on the streets, one of the crazy people is finally a woman. I was kind of wondering when remember, I think I mentioned it last week. I was like, when are the libs of TikTok in this world going to finally show up? When's a woman finally going to show up? And
Yeah, it's normally men with bad hair.
Right. So I was kind of glad of that, but the way she's so cuckoo bananas filming those pictures and talking about them as mementos of his evil deeds.
I found it was worse when she was out in the street.
Right. Like, what? Has she been standing there this whole time
Yes,
just
she has.
waiting for Roy to come out?
Yes, she
just
has.
standing in the street.
Filming everything.
Filming a door that's not opening. And is she, like, every time the door opens, getting really excited and then being disappointed because it's just a customer?
Only Alice knows the answers to that. Well, that was the week that was Coronation Street. Helen, tell me, your moment of the week?
Mason getting sent down.
Yeah, that was a
Mason, guilty. Yay!
Guilty as charged, my lad.
Woohoo!
That is our...
Moment of the week.
Your boring moment of the week?
Is it Leanne's meditations? Is it the brain as a computer?
Oh, the brain is a computer. That's definitely her.
Boring moment of the week.
I mean, they can't even think of, like, something new and kind of weird.
No.
People have been saying the brain is a computer since before
Since
we had...
computers.
Yeah, since before we had computers in our homes.
What kind of score are you going to give this out of 10 this week?
I did like Mason getting sent down.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not an awful lot of other stuff I liked. It was just kind of... It felt like one of those... It feels like next week is going to be a big week. Right?
Does it?
Yeah, because Roy's in jail now. So now we're going to be trying to get Roy out of jail and everything. And our other detectives are going to start working. Stu's going to get a lead. And he and Evelyn and Amy and Addie are all going to get in a van with a Great Dane. It's so terrible that Cerberus is dead.
Make room for Bobby. Bobby!
Where was Bobby this week? I kind of missed him.
I kind of miss him as well.
Bobby!
Anyway, your score.
5.5.
I think it's a dip since last week,
Yeah.
certainly, but it's maybe a 6.5 for me. I'm still, like I said, I'm still really enjoying the Roy storyline. It was good to see Mason get sent down. There's just a couple of storylines where I'm not entirely happy where they're going with Maria and
Right,
and
or
Leanne,
where
but-
like things that don't make sense happening had to happen in order for the rest of the story to happen, sort of thing. Do better.
This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast, Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Trisha, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, and English Victoria.
Whew, that's a lot of people.
Thanks, people. If you've ever carried pepper spray into a cafe, write in to tell us about it. We're thetalkingstreet@gmail.com and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/thetalkofthestreet. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
Please.
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. And we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
The Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.